Good afternoon, good morning. This is Mark Johnson from Loyalty 360. Hope everyone's happy, safe, and well today. I wanted to welcome you back to another edition of our Loyalty 360 Leaders in Customer Loyalty series. In this series, we talk to the leaders in customer channel and brand loyalty about what they're seeing on the front lines. Today, we had the pleasure of speaking with Josh Buchmann, who's the Senior Director of eCommerce and Guest Engagement at Checkers and Rallies, which combined between the two entities, they have more than 900 restaurants. So Josh, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to share our experience.
Absolutely. First off, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Maybe a fun fact about you, something you like to do in St. Peters, Florida, potentially, and all that you do at Rallies and Checkers.
Yeah, definitely. So been with Checkers and Rallies for coming up on 4 years, originally from Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places, but have found my way to some really fun places through the restaurant business. Fun fact about me, I love to ride my Harley. I don't know, I'm a motorcycle guy, so that's how one of the benefits of being in Florida, you get to be outside. So when I ride my bike to work, I get to lead the teams that are responsible for e-commerce and loyalty and overall guest engagement at Checkers and Rallies. So anything from website to email to mobile app to rewards programming to delivery and order ahead. I like to think of it as the fun part of the business because it's growing so quickly and it requires a ton of innovation. So super fortunate to have been given the responsibilities there. And we've seen a lot of success, especially over the last year, which has been fun.
That's awesome. Can you also give us a short history on Checkers and Rallies, kind of what you guys do, how you do it? I've seen them, very familiar with them, but for someone who may not know about what you guys do and how you do it, it'd be good to know that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I was one of those people that wasn't super aware of the brand until coming to work for them, to be super transparent. Very regional in nature, really strong in the Southeast and on the East Coast. We're really starting to expand in California and Texas, which is getting us a nice West Coast footprint. But long story short, we were founded on the idea of keeping it simple: burgers, fries, and cola. We're unique in the sense that a vast majority of our units have no form of dine-in. There are a few in some of the bigger cities, but we were created with the idea of making drive-through super simple, super fast. And what you'll notice is we actually have 2 drive-through lanes in the majority of our locations. So when you think about the idea of contactless payment, contactless food ordering, we were really set up for success, fortunately and unfortunately during the pandemic and kind of having to deal with a lot of that. So we're known for our famous seasoned fries. That's why people love us. They talk about us and they love that part about our brand.
Okay, great. So you kicked off this new year with the launch of a mobile app and a rewards program. Can you tell us a little bit about each and kind of the reasoning behind them and how they came to be?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big focuses for us in the last couple of years is just the restaurant industry as a whole has this trend of being terribly behind when it comes to technology and innovation. And we do a lot of catch up when it comes to comparing us to like a retail space, for example. So the last couple of years, we've been super focused on convenience. And the first phase of that was really delivery and order ahead, which set a super solid foundation for us to start focusing on the mobile app and rewards program. So obviously, as the pandemic hit and share of guests became super important, everyone in the industry was relying on their rewards or their loyalty program to help drive, engage, and change guest behavior, trying to capture as much spend as possible when there wasn't a lot out there. We found ourselves in a position where we did not have one. We were relying heavily on third-party ordering. It's great because there's a lot of reach. The hard part is you don't get a lot of guest information. They don't share that with you. So Francis Allen, our CEO, came to me and said, hey, we need a loyalty app and a rewards program by the end of this year. Let's make it happen. And so in a matter of 4 months, we launched a rewards program and a mobile app powered by Paytronix. And we're starting to enter that foray. But the idea is, how many people can I get to come into my restaurant? How can I change behavior? What's my addressable audience size? And how quickly can I make an impact to the business, especially when we need to move the needle?
Okay, great. And it's interesting. We have a lot of restaurants who are members of Loyalty 360. And we actually had a couple last year. They were looking to launch, and they didn't launch a loyalty program. It's an interesting discussion I had with one of their suppliers today, just that they didn't go forward and kind of where they are. And it seems like a very opportune time to do that because getting a closer relationship with your customers, as you mentioned, is more important now than ever before.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure the context of the conversation, but the long-term return seems, the finances behind it always seem to come up as a conversation. How much are you having to discount that guest to get them in? We're seeing a bit of a silver lining in addition to the actual rewards component. We've been surprised by the volume of e-commerce coming through our mobile app. It almost doubled our direct orders immediately once we launched. So that's helping our financial viability a little bit more, but totally understand.
Absolutely. Okay. So seamless ordering, the third-party delivery system seem to be an important application or area of interest for consumers. But it can be a challenge too with retailers and QSRs and restaurants, because that final mile, who owns delivery, who owns the customer at when. How did you go about doing your research into what you wanted to do in the app, and how do you balance some of those third-party relationships?
Yeah, I think there's two ways I'd answer that. First and foremost, when we think about anything e-commerce or guest engagement related, it has to be 100% integrated. Ease of operations is number one for us. So when we looked at third-party delivery, we would not partner with anybody that couldn't fully integrate into the point of sale system, specifically Olo, who helps facilitate that. And the same thing was it was the same focus for rewards. How can we make this super easy for our operators and our guests to understand? We went through a series of 4 different consumer insight surveys to really nail down what the Checkers and Rallies guests wanted to see in a mobile app. And that literally became our charter and set our requirements for how we wanted to select a partner, what our initial strategy was, and ultimately how we're going to prioritize and message it. So we let the guests really determine a lot of how we were going to go to market.
Okay. When you kind of went about the program, or the process of developing a program, I know you partnered with Paytronix in developing the mobile app and loyalty program. Can you tell us about kind of how the process worked, what you liked, what you didn't like, and kind of how it's going?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, full transparency, I've had limited experience in launching rewards programs in mobile apps. So I was given a great opportunity here. And one of the benefits is I got to just ingest everything that the industry had to share in terms of pros and cons. And being a close follower, we weren't the first to launch a mobile app in the QSR space by any means. So we were able to kind of pick and choose the best and worst of all the apps and the providers. So long story short, we knew we had a limited budget. We knew we had a limited amount of time, and we knew that we did not have the resources to go out and build something on our own. So that immediately starts to dwindle down the available providers, right? So we knew we would want to innovate long term, but short term, we need a white label solution. We need somebody with a proven track record that had integrated with large national brands. And we needed somebody who could, frankly, deliver us a pretty well-made rewards program that we didn't have to go out and create on our own. Very few groups out there doing that at scale. One of the challenges anytime you do an RFP is you're looking for that silver bullet. And I think the reality is that there's no one partner that's going to do every single thing that you want to a T. So Paytronix covered the most boxes that we could get checked. They showed the best long-term opportunity and the ability to integrate into their open APIs should we ever decide to customize. But it took us, I would say, probably about a month and a half, 2 months to go through the formal RFP process. And as soon as we solidified our partnership with Paytronix, blown away by the level of account management and the number of people they put on our account and just the support they provided on what I would call an extremely tight timeline.
That's awesome. Emotional loyalty is a big topic of discussion, a area of interest for brands who are running customer loyalty programs and also members of Loyalty 360. And what does emotional loyalty mean to you and to your brand?
Sorry, emotional loyalty?
Yeah, sorry.
Gosh, that's a great question. Emotional loyalty for us is really about just these hardcore fanatics for it. I think our brand in general has this already kind of emotional cult following as it is. And so we have a bit of a benefit there. But for us, it's tapping into that consumer experience of those people that are just fanatics for us and creating a space where they feel like they're rewarded. So like one of our our marketing is intended to be emotional in nature. And one of the big catchphrases that we've come up with is like, hey, we exist to reward the hardworking and underserved. So we know that the people that are engaging and loving in our brand, just they want to feel rewarded. They come to us as kind of that cheat meal. So we try to make it emotional. We try to make it craveable. We try to make it over the top. And for us, if we can win that guest, the advocacy and the recruiting that happens to get people into the brand it pays for itself.
Do your members have kind of an emotional or kind of passion connection to your brand? And if they do you think these emotional connections kind of help your customer loyalty efforts? Because sometimes it can be kind of a benefit, sometimes it can be a bane as well. And depending on kind of where you are and who you are, it can kind of vary a little bit.
Yeah, and honestly, especially in a lot of the markets that we're in, we tend to be in more urban areas. Our guests, we have two very specific guests. One is typically more value driven, and the other one is more crave and indulgence driven. And when you have a value driven guest and you're not creating a great experience, that's a very significant hit to the pocketbook for the guests that might be coming for us. So again, yeah, to your point, it's great when it's great and we really nail it, and we have this tried and true, especially social following, people that will defend our famous seasoned fries till they die. But boy, do we hear it, especially on the e-commerce side of the loyalty side, of somebody that we really let down. That was their last $5 in their pocket, or they really needed to go feed the family. And instead of creating an easier path to purchase, we overcomplicated their experience. So again, when we looked at the loyalty program, when we look at these integrations, we literally lead with, does it make the guest experience easier? Does it solve a problem that they might have? And that's kind of how we try to address that emotional piece.
Okay, great. When you look at customers are obviously changing. They were changing before COVID, and coming through COVID, they're changing even more. Obviously, you mentioned kind of the mobile commerce and what that was able to do to drive some revenue, very impactful. How do you see your customers changing? It sounds like you have a great handle on them, very value driven, maybe not the most upscale client, but still very, very laser focused on providing great customer experience. How are your customers changing, and how are you adapting to that change?
Yeah, I think, one of the benefits that we saw was we got an increase of guests that maybe were trading down from fast casual during the pandemic. They still had, extra income, but they weren't quite willing to spend all of that on that higher check value. So we saw a lot of trade down there. So one of the biggest things that we saw over the last year was a larger bifurcation between what we would call our premium guests and our value driven guests. And we're starting to really tailor our marketing to those folks. So, for example, a premium guest might be more interested in that indulgent, craveable item, willing to spend a little more for flavor because it's a treat, versus are your value-driven guests. You got your check possibly at the beginning of the month. You're tight on money at the end of the month. I need your 2 for $5 deals. I need your 2 for $4 deals. So we've really tailored our marketing calendar to support that type of guest and that bifurcation. I think historically, if you look back, it was typically more just value, but as we get smarter about our marketing, now that we have more channels to market directly, we're starting to create 2 distinct paths, and then just continue to learn. I think right now it's really difficult to tell what the long-term guests will look like, but we're certainly trying to adapt in real time.
Okay. How are you measuring the efficacy, the success of your customer loyalty efforts? And what KPIs do you and your teams look at? And are there KPIs out there that you may not be looking at that you may want to look at?
Yeah, so right now we've broken it down into short-term and long-term goals. So short-term, kind of the immediate, sorry for the lack of a better word, the sexy things to look at are, your app downloads and total number of guests that have opted into your program. So those are 2 very, KPIs that we watch daily. Long-term, our KPI is penetration of check. I don't care if you have 300, 600, 900,000 people in your loyalty program. If they're not frequent users or active users, it's kind of an arbitrary number. So once we get to scale, we'll be maniacally focused on how many checks go through our system that can be tied back to a rewards account. So we refer to that as the check penetration.
Okay, interesting. What's the next big thing for customer loyalty in your industry, customer experience, customer loyalty?
Oh, man. Honestly, where we're kind of hedging a lot of our bets is how do you use the customer loyalty data to create a more personalized kind of omni-channel experience? We're starting to really scrape the surface of that. I don't know that we have nailed any of it quite yet, but for example, if you visit my website, think of it like an Amazon experience. You go to Checkers and Rallies, you log in. How do I automatically populate a personalized dashboard for you? How do I make that your unique website that serves your past orders, your favorite menu items, and basically takes all of your transaction history to suggestively sell and create a great personalized experience? Moreover than that, how do we take that information and inject that information into our paid media strategy? How do we target you with information that's relevant to you and the messaging that's relevant to you? So we look at loyalty as a means not only to drive sales, but to collect additional guest data so we can just get smarter about how we market to people. And we're big believers that personalization isn't necessarily the goal of everything we do. I think you'll go crazy if you try to personalize every single component of your program. But we do view personalization as a mechanism to drive those sales, as kind of a means to an end rather than the end goal.
Okay. How's your brand different from your competitors? Are you seeing kind of similar customer experience, customer loyalty, personalization efforts with the competitive set? And if so, what are they doing? If not, what are you doing differently?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So as part of our survey, when we did all of the consumer insights, the top 3 things that a guest required of us, and this is mostly because of the other brands that they were using, was I want access to coupons. I want to know that I'm getting rewarded for all the money I spend, and I want easier ordering functionality, which we bundled as e-commerce, order ahead and delivery. I think a lot of what you see in our competitive set is a really big focus on couponing in general. If you go into, I won't name them, I suppose, but if you go into some of the competitive apps, it tends to feel more like a coupon book. And I think that probably serves a purpose for that particular guest. If they're going to go to McDonald's, they're automatically going to go in here and it's like clipping coupons. For us, we're trying to make it more incented based on behavior. We're going to give you access to exclusive deals. We're not going to necessarily give you a coupon book. We're going to give you things that you think are relevant based on your purchase behavior, and we're going to reward you. And I think one of the differentiating things about our rewards are once you hit the rewards threshold, we're going to give you $5. You can go spend it literally on anything you want. We're not going to restrict you on the menu items. We're not going to restrict you on the way that you can order it. It's truly about empowering the guest to feel like they're in control. And that was a really big emotional connection that we heard from our guests.
Okay, great. And the last question I have for you, somewhat self-serving, what can Loyalty 360 do, as a trade association for the industry to help you in your customer loyalty journey?
Oh, man. I think greater transparency just among the industry on how people are approaching loyalty. I think we constantly hear from our leadership team, like, oh, what is so-and-so doing? How is so-and-so approaching it? And I don't know that emulating or mirroring or mimicking other brands is really a successful way to go about making your own individually successful program. So I think transparency and just in like how people are doing point structures and in a more open forum on how people are approaching loyalty, but then encouraging people to, hey, figure out what works best for your brand and sharing any consumer research that you have just on, what do people expect from loyalty programs, what's working, what's not working, and just defining success differently. Because I think everyone looks at your Starbucks of the world, your Domino's, and the reality is not everyone can do that.
Yeah, absolutely right. Sense. And that's one of the things that we try to do, in the member community, share a lot of kind of member to member. The brands are pretty open. We do a little bit of consumer research, but I think that was some great feedback. Yeah. I think this was very interesting, Josh. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. Great to learn more about Rallies and Checkers and what you guys are doing. And it was great to hear you were able to bring up the loyalty program, the mobile app in such a timely manner.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to chat with you guys.
Absolutely.